Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. I'm your host, Jordan Samuel Fleming, and I am delighted to have my man, Rafael Cortez, from the CEO Pulse. Now, Rafael is someone who's been a long-time customer of mine, and I'm incredibly grateful that we've also become very good friends over the last year as we've sort of gotten to know each other and we've spent some time together at masterminds, and I visited him at his place, and he's got a really great operational mind, and it really comes through in this podcast where he dives into the CRM that he has launched and why it's starting to really gain traction, because it's combining his true operational mindset with a tremendous amount of value in that he embeds his courses and his learnings directly into the CRM. And he really does dive in to not only his own personal arc, but also how he, as an operator, has really continued to refine his CRM because he's an operator using it. And so every day as he's working his deals, he's able to kind of continue to finesse the CRM to the betterment of all the investors who are using it. Rafael is a fantastic guy. You got to check out his own podcast on leadership, which is absolutely fantastic. I was honored to be on that podcast as well. And take a look at his program, his course, and his CRM, because it's very rare that you get such an operator's mindset with that sort of executive level thinking combined in one product. And Rafael and his CEO Pulse really bring that there. So again, this is another episode I recorded live in Tampa when we were both at a mastermind. So I'm here in my office after the fact. If you're watching on YouTube, this is actually a live podcast where Rafael and I are together in Florida. And as a little nugget, stay to the end, because some guy just decides to walk up and walk around us for no reason at all. I want to leave that in the episode because it's really funny. And it's, you never know what's going to happen when you're live. But to find out what happens in this episode, let's head right to my conversation with Rafael Cortez. Okay, I'm live here. I'm literally live here with my good man, Rafael. Rafael, you've never been on the podcast before. Give everybody a sense of who you are and what you do.
Awesome. Well, first off, thank you for having me on the podcast. Live, great time, great outdoors. My name's Rafael Cortez. I'm based out of Phoenix, Arizona. I've been a real estate wholesaler since 2009. My background is organizational psychology, so I build systems, processes, operations all together, and I've been mentoring and coaching since 2017. I have a wholesaling business, fix and flip business. I'm a real estate broker as well in Phoenix. So kind of my whole endeavor revolves around real estate.
And I'm really excited about today because not only have you been a long-term customer of ours at Smartphone, but you have now transitioned into the SaaS space. You have now built, you are now building tools for investors, not only in your community, but building it for all sorts of real estate investors. So what we're going to do, we're going to dive into what makes your system unique, who it's for, and all of that. So before we get to that, though, you have an interesting backstory as well. You have a really interesting backstory as well, because most people have an arc. You have you got a couple arcs. So, give us your professional career from when you kind of became an 18-year-old. Give everybody a little of the backstory of the different things you've done.
I've had a couple of different lives, I guess. They've all been fun. So my first one was I became a firefighter when I was 19 years old in Yuma, Arizona, and I did that for years. That was my first exposure really to leadership and just, looking up to somebody that could probably guide me. And I think that was like the perfect time in my life, because I was just, I was all over the place. I was a 19-year-old kid that was making some cash and I thought I had it made, and this is it. I ran into some really cool people at the fire department that I would just observe what they were doing, learn from them, and I started opening up my mindset. My thinking got a little bigger, right? So after that, like one of the pivotal nights was me having a conversation with one of the captains. I wasn't even part of the conversation. I was a fly on the wall, but he was talking about how to build businesses, and it was like we have a lot of time as firefighters, 24 on, 24 off, that type of stuff. We should build a business and really dig into that. Like, that sounded like a great idea. So I took the idea. He had a couple of ideas, put one on the table. I took one of them, ran with it. Fast forward, I don't know, about 4 years. The idea that he was talking about, he was going to launch a funeral home. The second idea was a transportation business for medical transports, right? So I ran with the other one. In both businesses, I mean, he's got a couple of funeral homes back in Yuma now, so he's like the spot to go for when you die.
If you die,
like, that's where you want to be at.
He's the guy.
Yeah, he is the guy. And I built the company and I sold it in 2014, my transportation business. So it's pretty interesting, right? Like, you never know when the seed is going to get planted, but it all started with a fork on the road where I jumped into the fire department. Fire department opened up another road. I got into business and I started getting into, mentorships and masterminds and just learning, because the one thing I know is that I don't know it all. So coming into any space with a learning mentality has always been my secret weapon, per se. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting.
Well, and you also, if I recall, you also did some like woodworking, carpentry work as well, right?
Yeah, I kind of shoot from the hip a lot of times, and that's a trade that I haven't dropped it really. But so when I switched from the fire department, full time into entrepreneurship, because of the model of the business, I was in conflict of interest with the fire department, right? So they said, you can't be a business guy, and I said, yes, I can. And I left the fire department. So I was, I went back to my old roots. I used to work construction in high school and college, and so I went back to the guy that hired me back then, and I started working for him in construction. So we started, going back to the swinging hammers and that type of stuff. But it was a master carpenter, so we started building like really decked out bars. He taught me, how to build out on CAD and design and all that stuff. So it's something really special to me that I still, knock out every now and then. It's almost an outlet, right? But I did that for a while as well, and after that, I mean, I had a couple of different gigs when I was still building the first business. I became a case manager. I had a decent background of steadiness and longevity in the business with good rapport and good references. So I became a case manager. I was in loans for a while, so I just kind of bounced around. During that time, they were all stepping stones for me to build the transportation business. As soon as I landed the first few big contracts, I left everything, went all into it. Ran with that. I figured that transportation sucked, and it's like, all right, cool, all this work, but I built it out with an exit, and I started doing real estate investments in 2009.
Now, you mentioned masterminds and learning,
yeah,
and I wanted to kind of to follow up on that, particularly for your story and the transitions that you've made from investor to coach to systems. Because when you say, masterminds, communities, we're here because of a mastermind right now.
Right.
The reason why we're in this room together, or this room, the reason we're actually standing together is because we've been spending the last 4 days surrounded by unbelievable people, learning, sharing, and I think one of the, if you're a newer investor, and you're really trying to figure out how to scale up, leaning on other people, getting in those rooms, figuring out which rooms to go to, communities to listen to, where you can get help, where you can get guidance, where you can get support, where you can get accountability. Right. I think that's an incredibly important part of that journey to building a proper business. And you've done that as well. Not only did you absorb learning, you soaked it up like a sponge, but then you created a community and you created a program where you could help people, which led to now your software. So can you tell us a little bit about your kind of the way you're teaching, the coaching that you do works, your community, and how you made the transition from being an investor who was soaking up knowledge to helping guide new people?
I did. Thank you, and a good question. I think the transition almost becomes a natural progression when you start doing a lot of the business, right? So you get exposed, people start asking you, hey, how are you doing this? Can you show me how to do it? Can you show me? Then the question just kind of repeats itself. To me, it's one of those things that it found me, the mentorship, and I didn't know I was going to be enjoying it, or it was going to become one of my passions. I was after the deal. And then I sat down, I started consulting and doing one-on-one, just, hey, yeah, let's sit down and, we'll carve out a couple hours. I'll show you what I'm doing. And if it works for you, great. This is 2015, 2014. At the time, I sold my transportation business. I got into it full time. I actually applied to work with Sean Terry because I wanted to learn from like the tip of the spear. And Sean Terry is the guy. He's one of the OGs in the field. So I ended up becoming his acquisitions guy, and he put me on stage, to talk about acquisitions and what I was doing, the way that I was, locking up deals and everything. I did really well on that side, right? So I got exposed to the Q&A after the presentations. It was really the first taste of it. You go on stage and then you're like, hey, listen, this is my slide of how I do things, how I negotiate deals, and then boom, you get off the stage, which I was a total stranger to. And there was a lot of questions. It made me feel good to answer questions. Like, this is new. I haven't done this before, and I felt like I was empowering somebody else, especially after, people came back, weeks later. It's like, oh, that was really good. I used it and it helped me out. And so I just kind of leaned into that, fast forward a few years, and I started to consult one-on-one. I didn't have group coaching yet. And fine-tuned that, dialed in the processes, understood that one of the best things that mentorship does, it forces me to hold the space. So if I'm mentoring somebody, and any good coach will tell you that, or mentor, if you're mentoring somebody, you have to hold the space for yourself. Like, I can't talk to you about good lead generation or great follow-up or strategy if I don't have that stuff in my own business, right? So as I'm getting better and fine-tuning, the program itself, I have to apply, my results get better. So it's always a two-way street when it comes to mentorship. You're learning, you're teaching, but as you're teaching, you're improving upon yourself. And I think that's the thing that pushes it forward. So to kind of, wrap it up on that note, it's I brought the same stuff that I learned at the fire department, SOPs, processes, systems, processes, and procedures, and brought them into the way that we did wholesaling, right? It wasn't, wholesaling has always been kind of, a Wild West type of business.
You don't say.
Yeah, exactly. So I started, systemizing back then. And first in paper, spreadsheets, and you know it, right? You have multiple different resources that you tap into. And then it all led into, I built my first Podio setup. That's when I started signing up with you guys. It's like, you guys are the only ones that are innovating all the time and growing with the times. It was like, yep, those guys. So did that, and then I started building the tools, and then the community, the everything else just kind of came together in 2009 for group mentorship. So I've been doing group mentorship. I still do one-on-one as well, but group mentorship since 2009. The REI Wholesaling Academy is what I do, and it's a beginning to end mentorship program for real estate wholesalers. But I have all the systems, the processes, SOPs, everything, calculators, right? What I've done lately is build the software support or the technology to just keep it all in one place. You log in, you have the modules, the trainings, the follow-up sequences, the AI that does follow-up specifically for follow-ups. It really just eases the mess that we often cause when we're trying to figure out how to do the business, right? So,
well, let's follow up on that, the mess that we often cause, because a question I get all the time when I speak to newer investors who don't necessarily have a system, they don't necessarily have a CRM, they don't necessarily have that yet, and a lot of them, if you're relatively new, then you're probably going to be concerned about money as well. Like, you every penny matters, and where you spend it, you don't have a lot of it. If you're trying to escape a W-2 or whatever it is. So there's always a question of, what is the tipping point where I need to really start to invest in systems to make sure that I have that dialed in, and it's rigorously tracked and everything's done. So in your experience working with so many people in mentorship, seeing it all, what point do you usually say to someone, man, you really need to have your systems dialed in?
I used to think, right, and my thought for the longest time was, hey, listen, you're going to take actions as a first step, and you don't need a CRM, you don't need fancy systems. You can do it all with a piece of paper and your phone if you have less than 100 leads, right? That was kind of like the breaking point. And I still believe that. However, what I've seen is that you have the logic of what, when you should, start to deploy, systems and processes. And then you have the emotional component, which is creating excuses for everything. So, and this is a real thing. This is through mentorship, right? So it's like, all right, cool. Your excuse is that you don't have a website. So you haven't called the 50 leads that you need to call this week. All right. I got to figure out the logo. I got to figure out the website. I have to figure out, the calculation on the CRM and all. So we procrastinate in a very creative way to push things back when we don't have a system or something in place that we can just follow and click through. So I still think that anybody who's got that fire, and you can tell right away when somebody jumps into the mentorship program, is like, dude, I can give this guy 2 carrots and he's going to figure out how to, work a deal. All he needs is a little fire,
a little structure, and a little,
boom, like give him a direction or gal. And they're going to go and just take off running. And then you have, the student that jumps in is like, I need to have everything perfect to a T. But at the end of the day, there's a fear behind that. There's a fear, there's a procrastination caused because of the next step that you don't want to take. Maybe you're uncomfortable with the conversations, you're uncomfortable with what you want to say, how to negotiate a deal, how to comp, that type of stuff, right? And it all comes down to, hey, let's figure out what the easiest way to push that back a couple of days is. And that's what I found, right? Like, I don't have a system, I don't have a CRM, the follow-ups, I had to do follow-ups and I called 3 people, they didn't answer, so I forgot about them. So to me, it's somebody jumping into the system. Now, what I like about having it all, in convergence per se, right? Because you have the system, the support, and then the knowledge in one place is there's what I've gotten rid of is, yes, bottlenecks systematically in the business, but I've gotten rid of excuses one by one. Like, you don't have a website? Yes, you do. It's right there. Boom. Next step, please, let's move forward. And then the contracts, okay, boom, yes, you do. Next step, let's move forward, right? So it's all, I feel like we have to tackle it, and this is a psychology part in me, but you have to tackle it from the mindset perspective, and then the systems and ops. It just it has to make sense, right? So yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting mix there that you have to tackle when somebody's getting started, because it is a new learning curve, right? It is scary. It can be daunting to just like, hey, listen, I'm going to bet on this thing. I have no idea what it is yet, though.
Well, and actually, I'll follow up on one little bit about that, because I agree with everything you just said.
Yeah.
And I think that seeing, with the mentorship background and all that, you have a unique insight to do it. But systems can be their own paralysis as well.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you have to deal with that in your, because there, like, how many times I've seen someone who gets, topical with AI right now.
Yeah. Oh,
all right.
100%.
Where, you listen to people and people can't wait to tell you about all the time they've spent with Claudebot or whatever, doing this thing and doing this thing. And a lot of times you're like, is that what your business is for?
Yeah.
Like, where are you spending your time? Where's your focus?
Yeah.
And now that's the new part, but even just a CRM can be a sense of paralysis for people as well. How many times have I seen people, going through and rigorously making sure they do even more metrics.
Yeah.
Let's have more KPIs, right?
Yeah.
I've got 52 KPIs now.
Yes.
What the hell are you doing?
How many deals?
What? I mean, but there is a fine. I'm sure that when people when they're beginning, one of the things I always do try and say to people when they're beginning with technology, because I think I've always said you need a CRM the moment you start spending money.
Yeah.
If all you're doing is driving for dollars and knocking on doors,
yeah,
honestly, you probably are okay for the first little while until you get volume, until you get, But if you are spending money on mailers, you're buying lists, if you're spending money, you better damn well track it.
Yeah.
But there's always a balance for new people of not overwhelming them with technology either.
Yeah.
Not overwhelming them so that they spend all their time thinking about the system and not get on the fucking phone.
Yeah, it's got to be we talk about UI all the time, right? Like the user interface or the user experience from the software standpoint, it has to be easy. Like if you have to go through a university course to figure out how to use the damn thing, it's going to be really tough, right? Now you have the learning curve of the business itself, and then the learning curve of the tech that goes behind it. Yeah.
And the mindset learning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and then you have, I mean, I've heard it more than a million times, right? I'm not a techie person. It's got to be easy to use, to deploy. It's got to be a fun thing. It's got to feel like a positive tool that you can reach out to and makes you, improves you, and helps you be better in the business. Then it's like, man, I gotta run everything through this and figure it out and learn it. And it's, I mean, that's a weight. We can create weight, right? Like, I feel like from the SaaS perspective, it's the one role that we have is improving and making things easier. So in my head, if I can turn it, any given excuse into a button, like the excuse is gone, and then they can move forward to the next, unlocked, chapter of the business.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Your princess is in another.
Exactly.
That's dating us, by the way, because everybody who's not our age is going to go, what the hell are you talking about? Well, that's Super Mario Brothers.
Yes. You know.
But not this movie shit. Not this movie shit.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt this amazing conversation, but I wanted to make sure you knew that Smartphone, the only phone system built for real estate investors, connects to the best-in-class real estate investment CRMs. And because, as it's my show and I am co-founder and chairman of Smartphone, I got some great deals for you. Click the link and take advantage of 5,000 minutes free calling with Smartphone, the only phone system built for real estate investors. Click and call. Close more leads. Back to the show.
Let's dive into your system yourself. So you, because I think you doing systems, because it comes from a unique Venn diagram of all of your experience, everything that's led up to you, your coaching, your psychology elements, the work that you do, just like organizational structuring, leadership, you've got all these components that gives a different shade of perspective, so that when you think of a system, then you have a way of understanding that is more mature than someone who's just like, I want to build a system. Because a lot of people try and build it. A lot of people in wholesaling, I can't tell you how many people over the years have come to me, like wholesalers in particular, have come to me and they're like, I've got an amazing Podio system. I'm going to sell it to everybody and be and the truth is, a few of them did it. This many people did it. And even that, like they're now with vibe coding, they're like, I'm going to build this amazing system and it's going to take over the world. No, it's not. And sure enough, you spent a lot of time and it's gone nowhere. You've got a system that I think is really interesting because it combines the processes, the SOPs. It combines the system, the processes, the education and knowledge.
Yeah.
And the activity, whether it's by dialing, texting, using smartphone, using AI phones, whatever. You've got all of those things built in a way that is designed to sort of push a business forward. So tell us, if you think about your system right now, what would you say if you were giving me your minute pitch? I'm going to give you more than 30 seconds. I'll give you a minute.
Ooh.
Of what 3 things do you think working in your system is going to bring someone even more value than any other system out there?
You have to, and again, you have to break it down into stages, right? Every, especially in wholesaling, it's not a lump sum of actions. It's everything is broken down into lanes. For example, there's 6 stages in any business that you look at. Wholesaling is not any different, right? I brought it down to sourcing leads, converting leads, acquisitions, dispositions, measuring and improving. Right? So there's 6 stages in that. Every single one of those stages needs to be covered for your business to move forward. If you're just doing sourcing where you're doing outreach for leads and whatnot, and you're not converting leads, your acquisitions get stacked, gets bottlenecked, and then you end up talking to a bunch of crap leads, right? We don't want that. So you fix the converting in your acquisitions as well. But if your dispo sucks, you're going to get bottlenecked. You're still not making any money. So they all have to talk to each other. Now, what most businesses out there do is they'll work on the first 4 stages, knowingly or unknowingly, right? Because they're just part of the action. But the measuring and improvement sections are often left out, right? You close a deal, you get paid, you get the escrow, you get funded, on to the next thing, right? But there's no review, no tracking on valid KPIs. And I'm saying KPIs, not measuring metrics. metrics, right? There's a big difference between KPIs and navigators. But when you look at the right stuff and then you actually deploy it and improve it upon, every single deal that you go through, you're going to end up with a pretty dialed in system. What happens with a lot of the software out there is it's built from a unilateral perspective. So it's like, oh, I'm going to build, this platform that works for me because it's great and this is my model, right? And you see platforms come together. What I've done is I paid attention to what works for me. I paid attention to what works for hundreds of my students throughout the years, right? As we're building calculators, as I'm having multiple coaching calls every single week, thousands of hours of just input and content, right? So building upon that, and rolling it into the systems and processes, right? Of the actual automations, of the triggers, of the UI, meaning, hey, you start here, you have two things that you need to look at the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, those things need to be gone, right? And the way that you do it is you go to your opportunities and follow queue. Here, it's a very linear process. But you give somebody three steps of instruction to follow. And even though the platform may be robust and do a ton of things, they're happening on the background. Like, you don't have to worry about, how the thing is connected to this other, piece of conversation. We have to simplify the front end. And I think that's how the redundancies get pushed forward. You know what I mean? They get actually mitigated, and then you have better results. But yeah, so when you bring it back, I mean, there's going to be key things in each one of those steps that I told you. For example, if you have a way of creating automatic follow-ups and sequences, you can throw somebody on a drip. But with all the tech that we have now, you can throw somebody on a drip, get interest back from them, and then have AI come in, pre-qualify them, actually classify the lead, right? Which is one of the things that happens in the system right now. If you look at my platform, my dashboard, when I do demos on it, I'll show my personal dashboard. It's working over, I think, over 4,000 leads that are on just on the constant work for the next year, right? That's leg work that my team doesn't have to do. I don't have to do. Whenever they come back, they get pre-qualified automatically, and boom, pop up on hot lead or warm lead, or continue nurture, right? But it's a system doing the lift, and I feel like a lot of times in the past, there's been systems created, but not necessarily designed to operate as an additional arm of the business, but more of a holder of data and information. Yeah.
And also, I think what's interesting about that, there's two things I want to follow up on that. Number one, just the sort of, to your point about the clarity, sort of the clarity side of being able to not overwhelm the experience,
right?
But because you can kill people with tasks.
Absolutely.
If you've got to give someone, say there's 15 steps in order to do something.
Yeah.
You can kill someone's motivation by giving them 15 steps.
Yeah.
You give them one step.
Yeah.
Right. But I want to pick up on one of the things you said, because you talked rightly about the difference between KPIs and metrics, right, Lee? Because I think a lot of people get, A, they don't understand it, and B, they get focused. They get so focused on the wrong things around metrics and KPIs. Can you give us your take on this from your platform, but also just your take on why it matters and how you focus people on those two things? How you focus maybe on, see, to me, I never think you should have more than 5 KPIs.
I agree. Yeah.
Like, what?
So
else could you need?
So there's a big thing, and if you want to put a dashboard together, you're going to have a ton of metrics in there, and I call them navigators. They're lagging, right? They're lagging indicators, navigators, similar thing. But then you have your key performance indicators. The thing that if I improve this right now, my bottom line increases, right? So my revenue increases, for example, if you improve your closing ratio or your revenue per deal, that's something that's gonna boom immediately, right? Rise up. You see that effect when you're closing a deal, and then you see your averages go up immediately. That's gonna be a KPI. A navigator is gonna be cost per lead, right? Cost per lead doesn't necessarily impact your revenue, your income, like money coming in right now. It impacts your expenses, but it's going to be a lagging indicator of revenue and profit down the road, right? Depending on whether it's a good, vehicle, bad vehicle. And what I see happen often is like, oh, I'm getting so excited about understanding all these numbers and metrics. And if I, put $1 here, these numbers change, and it becomes almost like a casino game, bro. It's like,
where am I going to throw my chips today?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll put some on 7, put some.
Yeah. And you don't really need to for the sake of performance and actual production, you don't need to get lost in the weeds. All right. If you have your average, revenue per deal, if you find out how much your average deal costs, because you can have, cost per lead, cost per prospect, cost per click, cost per, whatever. At the end of the day, when you're talking about the 5, having a set of 5.
The really ones, the ones
like,
that matter.
This one matters, right? Everything is going to be a subset of those, but you do have, like, for example, your cost per deal overall, like, how much am I spending? If you see something wrong going on with that number, then you can go into the subsets and analyze it. But don't spend all your time building up, KPIs and dashboards for crap that's going to be, you don't need it to lock up the next deal. What you need to do is pick up the phone, have a conversation, know where to go, understand, the insides and outs of that particular deal, and be able to move it forward fast, right? Speed is the biggest thing. If you get bogged down by tracking and measuring and all that stuff, you end up playing a different game, right? You're side gigging and wholesaling, and then you're building your ops. It makes a lot of people feel really good when they're building the ops, the systems and the processes. Yeah, I'm not saying don't do that if you want to individualize it, but focus on your biggest, your highest and best right now, right? There's different stages to business. When you're in stage 1 and you're barely building it up, profit is going to be at the top of the list. You have profit, systems, and processes. Like, that's a priority. Processes at the end. Right? I'm sorry, profits, people, and process. So you have profits as a number 1. You can't keep going if you don't, I'm
not making money.
Yeah, if you're not making money, right? So as you grow, and there's different stages and triggers for that, but as you grow, the profits still remain, even on the second stage, they still remain at the top. Then your systems and people kind of change, right? You dial in a little more into building systems because you got to fine tune and you got to hire for later. And there's sequences to follow when you're developing a business. And what I see is, like, it's almost always inverted. Like, I want to have everything dialed in. I want to have the business flow, navigate by itself. And I'm thinking entrepreneurship, when all you need to do is close the first 2 deals a month. And I'm thinking, this company is going to be automated, and we all need baby steps. Shit, I need baby steps. Right now I'm in baby steps. Last night I was talking to you about baby steps on the SaaS world. I mean, it's in terms of understanding where we're at and understanding the next actions, clarity is going to be our biggest tool.
I think that's so important. I think it's so important. So I even say, so we're a relatively large business now.
Yeah.
And we have one set of numbers that we religiously look at as a business every single week/month. Mm-hmm. And they are our North Star numbers, right? Because the moment one of those numbers, actually they're graphs, the moment we see the graph change, the curve change, we know we have to look deeper. Because to your point, like, this is telling me I need to dig in. Yeah. What's causing that?
Right.
But there's only 4.
Yeah.
Because the rest are, if those are all green, if those are all good, we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Now, we may still be able to improve and go faster. And of course, different teams will do that. But as a company, as an existential threat to your company, right? Because that's where, certainly at our level, like, our board meets every month, and we go through existential threats to the company. Not, are we, is the sales team doing a little bit more of this or whatever? Are we doing better at this, lead gen up on it, whatever? Those are all important for each teams to look at. But at the company, there aren't that many metrics that tell you whether or not you're going towards death or glory. And I think it's really important that people understand that you can get real paralysis around this idea of minutia data.
Yeah.
When minutia numbers, like, so-and-so, this was, did you make money?
Yeah.
Like, did this make money? Did this move you forward? Then chances are the little bit of minutia work out over time and not matter.
Yeah.
Unless they're those key critical ones.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important point.
Another thing that we often, we deal mostly with founders, right? Like, you have to understand that if you're the person building the business, you're the person doing, okay, I'm launching this, I'm betting on myself. You're part of a 5% of the population, if that, right? People that, take a risk on themselves, that they decide to go out there and then, venture into entrepreneurship and bet on themselves. Your thought process by default is going to be different. right? Your thought process is going to be different. You may be great to have all these levers and micromanagement buttons and points of perspective, but at the end of the day, the people that come and work with us, they don't need that stuff. They need a 1, 2, 3 step. They need clarity. Why? Because that's 95% of the population. I'm throwing a number out there, but I think it's well in the 90s.
I think it's higher.
Yeah. And I was leaving some room there for optimism. But if you think about it, right, our thought process is also going to be different. So the way that we approach business, it's not going to be the way that your employee or the person that you're going to hire, your VA that's going to have to deploy your scorecard is going to think about it. It's going to be confusing as hell. So we need to simplify and take it from that perspective. It's like, all right, cool, this works well for me, but how can I take this, box it up, and then so it becomes a universal understanding across my business, right? Because eventually, even if you have one VA or two VAs, if the second that you bring somebody else on board, now you're in charge of training them. Even if you have one person, let's say they just hire a VA for cold calling, right? Now you got to train that person, you have to retain that person, you have to make sure that you have accountability over that person and what they're doing and understand the process, right? So the way that we build a business in the first place is going to be very different than the way that we operate a business, right? So.
Well, and a final thing I just want to talk a bit about in terms of your system before we sum up and let people know how they can get hold of you, which is the most important thing, is I really like your concept of bringing the training that you've developed in your community and in your coaching into the system. Because I mean, when we think about training inside of systems, we usually talk about just training on the system.
Yeah.
And right, and but what I enjoy about your model is because you've got that background of a coach, of a mentor, you've built a community, you've built because you've got all that, and you've seen what helps people get successful. You see all that by actually bringing those two together in a very real way.
Yeah.
Then you're providing someone with an experiential kind of process of not just systems, but business growth.
Yeah.
Because the systems aren't the growth. The systems are facilitators.
Yeah. For the actions.
Yeah. But the knowledge and all of those things, and they're usually so disparate.
Yeah.
I'm taught by this, I'm reading this person's book, or I am in this person's community, or I've watched this person's webinar. Now they've told me I like this system. Right, here's my knowledge. Now I'm turning on this side. And it's almost like, my knowledge is here, my systems are here, and all that. And I really enjoy the fact that you've intentionally brought those things together. I think it speaks to probably who you are and all those experiences and what makes you and what makes your, the people who engage with you so successful. But I think that's a really important part of your system.
I think, I have this exercise that I do at the beginning of every year, and I think I told you about it, but, right around, the last week of December, when I'll try to sit down and kind of map out the next chapter, right? What's the next year going to look at? I have a deep, just personal session on what where I want to go. Am I headed in the right direction? The thing that came up for me this year was convergence. It's putting everything together because of what you're saying, right? Like I have mentorship here, mentorship happens here, and then we have operations, and we have, things that are kind of, dispersed. Bringing them together just makes sense, right? For the sake of simplicity, for the sake of action. Like in my head, if I have one login to go into and then just deploy everything I need to deploy, ask the questions I need to ask, watch the videos and trainings that I need to, click the buttons that I need to send out a contract, to do follow-up automatically and pre-qualify, all that stuff, right? It centralizes everything. And I think it simplifies the process. It goes back to that comment, we made earlier about, hey, you give somebody a checklist of 15 things. Yeah, exactly. Like, this is too much. I'm not even built for this lane of work, right? When the reality can be very different. It's like you're just getting a big gatekeeper at the door. It's really what's happening. But if you simplify that to 1 or 2, 3 actions, it's a lot easier to consume. So that's been the whole principle behind how I've developed the platform, the mentorship, the coaching. It's all very, very objective. Think bullet point style, think linear. You begin here at sourcing, and then you end up here measuring and improvements. Everything else, it's laid out, frameworked and everything in between, as well as the tools with the buttons and everything that we need to deploy it. And I feel like one of the things that helps me too is I'm a natural operator. So I still wholesale, I still fix and flip, I do all that stuff, and I use the platform on a regular basis. So whenever something happens that feels like, it's a little redundant, I'm getting feedback from our multiple calls that we have during the week. It's always it's a constant, race for improvement. You know what I mean? So something happens, a new tool pops up. We had ChatGPT. Like, oh, it's the greatest, best thing. And then boom, Claude popped up. It's like, all right, cool. Now we can do stuff in Claude. You just never know what's going to happen next week. And we have to adjust and adapt right as we're going. So that's a crucial thing. But you can't overcomplicate the framework of the elemental system the fundamental system they have in place. So.
Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on. I also
excited, man.
I appreciate you in every way. I mean, for context, Rafael has been a customer of smartphones for a long time, and but only in the last 6 or 7 months did we actually meet in person and become friends. And I've been able to see firsthand, not only his capability and generosity, but also how much he deeply cares about the communities he's involved with and always tries to push people forward. So I think if you have a chance to work with Rafael, you don't want to miss that out. So make sure that why don't you close this episode out by telling everybody how they can find you and how they can engage with you.
Thank you. Well, first off, I want to thank you again, brother. You're one of the best people I know. I knew you were a cool guy before I met you in person, but then, through the roof. So a lot of respect, a lot of love for you. But yeah, I'm really active on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Rafael Cortez, CEO. You can also find me on my website, which is thereipulsecrm.com. thereipulsecrm.com. and I answer all my messages, so I'm easy to get a hold of. Yeah.
I mean,
we got fans.
And you know what? I'm not editing that out because I think that's funny. I have actually a quick story. I'll end actually on a weird story on this one because it's relevant to whatever just happened there when we were getting. You're gonna.
We had. Wait, let me sidestep here, but we had this thing called situational awareness at the fire department.
No, but so when we were getting married, when my wife and I were getting married in Italy, we were in this really beautiful church. This is the episode's kind of over, but like just you may like this story. We were getting married in this beautiful church, like in Italy, beautiful, huge church, right? A real tourist place, and I'm standing at the altar with two guys in suits, tuxedos kind of suits next to me. We've got the bridesmaids over here, an altar here, people in the pews looking. I'm sitting there waiting for my wife to walk with, down towards me. And this guy comes in, he walks down, he's got a camera, this tourist, and he walks down the aisle. And he's like, I'm just taking a picture. I'm sitting at the altar with my guys, and we all kind of go,
yeah.
What do you think is happening here? And that's sort of what this guy walked, literally like 100 yards this way to walk behind us, to walk all the way over there for zero reason. But anyway, on that bombshell. I'll make sure I post out all the links to Rafael's communities and to his socials. He's also going to be coming live inside a smartphone very soon to do a masterclass with me, to all of you guys, because he has such value to bring. So do me a favor and hit Rafael out. Hit Rafael up. Make sure you check out both his communities himself and his amazing system. And, have a fantastic week. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for listening to another amazing episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. Head over to thatrealestatetechguy.com to check out all episodes and get special discounts on tons of awesome real estate technology platforms.